The smoke had not yet settled. It drifted in heavy gray waves across the ruins of the valley village, curling around the broken timbers and scorched earth like a living memory that refused to die. Morning sunlight tried to pierce the haze, but it reached the ground in thin, weak beams, too soft to warm, too faint to comfort. Mara, a 19-year-old girl with long dark hair now matted with soot, lay half buried under a fallen roof beam. She pushed herself free with trembling arms, every muscle screaming in protest. Her skirt was torn, her knees scraped raw, and her breath came in sharp, painful bursts. She coughed, the sound small against the vast quiet of destruction. Her village, her home, had been alive only hours before. She remembered waking to shouting, the thunder of hooves, the crackle of flames climbing the thatched roofs. She remembered the desperate run toward the storage shed, her mother's hand pulling her along, then the collapse. After that, only darkness, fire, and silence. Now she crawled, dragging herself through the ash that coated the earth like a second skin. Her fingertips left smudged streaks on the blackened ground as she pulled forward inch by inch. Her legs refused to carry her. One felt twisted, swollen, wrong. But she didn't dare stop. A village that burned this completely meant danger still lingered somewhere beyond the hills. "Help," she whispered, but the word vanished into the smoke. She coughed again, harder this time, tasting ash. Her arms shook violently beneath her. She paused just long enough to steady her breathing, then forced herself onward, toward a sliver of open ground where the smoke thinned. If she could reach the riverbank, if she could find anyone alive. A sudden crunch of footsteps froze her in place. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She pressed her palms into the hot earth, trying to lift herself, trying to turn. Through a veil of smoke, a tall figure emerged. At first she saw only the outline, broad shoulders, spear in hand, hair falling in long braids. Her breath caught. Fear instinctively rose in her chest. But as the figure stepped into clearer light, she saw details that didn't match the raiders who attacked. The man's clothing was made of soft buckskin, decorated with beadwork and dyed threads. His movements were controlled, cautious but not threatening. His face, when he came close enough to see it clearly, was calm but deeply focused, his sharp gaze sweeping over the ruined homes before settling on her. She flinched when he approached. Her voice shook. "Please, don't." He knelt beside her at once, lowering his spear and raising both hands where she could see them. His expression softened. Not pity, but something gentler, steadier. "You're hurt," he said quietly. His voice was low, steady, carrying a depth that cut through her fear for a moment. Mara blinked, trying to shape words, but only a rasp came out. The warrior leaned forward, slipping an arm under her shoulders with surprising gentleness. She felt herself lifted, her weight barely an effort to him. "My name is Tahoma," he said. "You're safe now." She tried to shake her head, tried to warn him. No one was safe, but her chest tightened, and a wave of dizziness washed over her. The world tilted. She grabbed at his shirt, but her fingers had no strength. "Who did this?" Tahoma asked, his voice suddenly tense, eyes searching the scorched horizon. Mara opened her mouth to answer, but the smoke, the loss, the shock, all of it pressed in too fast. The world turned soft around the edges, fading into gray. The last thing she saw was Tahoma's face, worried, determined. As the darkness took hold and she slipped into unconsciousness, the first sensation that reached Mara through the fog of unconsciousness was the smell. Warm, earthy, and strangely calming. Crushed leaves, resin, and a faint hint of wood smoke. The burning scent of her village was gone, replaced by something gentler, something alive. She blinked slowly, her vision swimming before the world settled into shape. She lay inside a small shelter made from bent willow branches covered with hides. Sunlight slipped through the narrow gaps overhead, painting thin lines across the ground. Her injuries throbbed, but the pain was no longer the sharp, tearing agony of before. Someone had wrapped her wounds in clean strips of cloth, carefully bound with herbal paste that cooled her skin. She exhaled shakily, grateful for even that small mercy. A soft grinding sound drew her attention. Tahoma sat only a few steps away. He knelt in the dirt, shoulders steady, hands working a stone bowl filled with crushed herbs. His long braids hung over his chest, brushing lightly against the beadwork on his buckskin tunic. He didn't notice her awake at first, not until she tried to sit up and winced. "Easy," he said immediately, setting the bowl aside. He crossed the short distance and gently guided her back down with a hand against her shoulder. "You shouldn't move yet. Your leg needs more time." Mara swallowed. Her voice felt fragile, as if it might crack under its own weight. Where are we?" "In a safe place," he replied simply. "A hidden camp my people use when traveling. You were too injured to move far, so I brought you here." His tone held no pride, no expectation, just fact. "You slept through the night." She nodded weakly, though guilt twisted in her chest. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be a burden." Tahoma's expression softened. "You are no burden." Mara looked at him properly for the first time since waking. His face was calm, unreadable on the surface, but his eyes held a steady heat, an alertness that hadn't eased even for a moment. Despite the calm tone he used with her, she sensed something coiled beneath the surface. Tension. Watchfulness. He had been guarding her. Her throat tightened. "My family," she began, but her voice faltered. Speaking the words made them too real. Tahoma lowered his gaze briefly. "I went back," he said quietly, "to look for survivors." She stared at him, breath hitching. "And?" He shook his head once. No flourish, no lingering, but the gesture carried the weight of finality. Mara pressed a trembling hand to her mouth as tears burned behind her eyes. The world she had known was gone. Every familiar voice, every warm fire, every morning routine, turned to ash. The tears came slowly at first, slipping down her soot-marked cheeks. She tried to hide them, turning her face away, but Tahoma didn't move or look away. He simply let her grieve without interruption. When she finally wiped her eyes and tried to speak again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Who would do this? Our village. We had no enemies." Tahoma's jaw tightened. For the first time, real anger flickered in his eyes, not wild or reckless, but controlled, restrained with effort. "I saw tracks," he said. "Horsemen. Many. The patterns were not those of my people." Mara frowned. "Then who?" "Outsiders," he answered. "Bandits who travel the trade routes. They take what they want and burn what's left. They struck before dawn. Swift. Efficient." A shiver ran through her. "Will they come back?" Tahoma didn't answer immediately. Instead, he rose, walked to the entrance of the shelter, and looked out across the narrow canyon beyond. The early morning light spilled over the rocks, turning them gold. He scanned the distance as though expecting movement. Finally he spoke. "They passed through the valley. If they believe no one survived, they may not return. But I won't take that chance." His calmness wasn't cold. It was the deliberate calm of someone who had carried responsibility his entire life. Someone who understood danger because he lived with it every day. Mara shifted, trying to sit despite the pain. Tahoma, you saved my life, she said. But why? You didn't know me. My village and yours hardly spoke. He turned and met her gaze steadily. Because you were alive, he said simply. And because no one deserves to be left in ashes. She opened her mouth, but before she could respond, a distant sound echoed through the canyon, faint at first, then sharper. Shouting. The hair on the back of Mara's neck rose. Tahoma stiffened instantly, spear in hand before she could blink. All softness, all gentleness, gone. In its place stood the warrior she had first seen stepping through the smoke. He moved silently to the edge of the shelter, crouched low, eyes fixed on the canyon entrance. Mara's heartbeat quickened, fear making her limbs tremble. Tahoma, who is it? He held up a hand. Quiet. The shouting grew clearer, hooves striking stone. Several riders. Coming closer. Mara's breath caught, her vision blurred with panic. They found us, she whispered. Tahoma didn't turn, but his voice came low, steady, anchoring. Listen to me. Stay hidden behind the blankets. Do not make a sound. No matter what you hear. But, no matter what, he repeated, his tone unyielding. He stepped out into the open, spear angled, posture tall and commanding as he positioned himself between her and the approaching danger. Mara pulled herself deeper into the shadows of the shelter, heart pounding so loud she feared it would give her away. She clutched the blankets with shaking fingers, listening to the hooves drawing nearer and nearer until they echoed like thunder off the canyon walls. Alone in the dim hide shelter, one truth settled over her with the weight of a mountain. Tahoma wasn't just the man who had found her in the ashes. He was now the only barrier standing between her and the men who had destroyed everything she loved.